Hello everyone out there, welcome back to the Phantoms Fanatic YouTube channel. I am back with another review, and this review is of Saw X, released this year in 2023, starring Tobin Bell, Shawnee Smith, Shanive Makodi Land, Renetta Vaca, Costas Mandalore, Stephen Brand, and it was directed by Kevin Greutert. And the plot of Saw X is John Kramer, the Jigsaw Killer, hoping for a miraculous cure to his brain cancer, goes to a remote, unauthorized specialist in Mexico to try to get his brain tumor cured, but after realizing that they jibbed him, he then decides to put on his most personal game ever and tests if they have the will to live. And he, of course, says, "Live or die, the choice is yours." So, I have reviewed Spiral from the Book of Saw when that came out, and I reviewed that with my good old buddy Warhawk Person, and me and him had an opinion on that we thought that movie was alright, but this movie is a true return to the Saw franchise, in my opinion, because I did like the directing and the editing in Spiral from the Book of Saw. It had a very similar editing curve to the original Saw movies, but immediately when I saw the trailer for this, I could tell they were editing this shit and directing this shit like a Saw movie. Like, I only can explain that if you know what I mean, because it's like when you see the shot of the guy with like the weird thing around his head, and as he pulls out, it like cuts around him a lot, and like the tracking zoom in shot of that character is the way that the Saw movies are, especially in the trap scenes, and this movie does do a good job of bringing them feeling like the original Saw franchise. It's also colored very similar, a lot of blues and greens everywhere, and I'm just a huge fan. One thing that I think Saw X does a really good job of is it does make the main character this time around John Kramer. In the past, it's always been usually the trap victims or the cops trying to find John Kramer. In this, we completely follow his perspective, and they do make you sympathize for John Kramer enough and get behind him. It is, yet again, a hard thing to make such an evil character sympathize and have you follow them, but I feel like the only way that you can do that right is if you show that the people that he is targeting truly deserve it, and I think they do a good job in this in making the people who practically scam him feel like complete dicks. But also, what I like about this is that it does stick to John Kramer's ideology for the most part. I'll get into that problem, because what makes John Kramer such an interesting killer is, first of all, Tobin Bell plays him insanely well, and yet again in this, even though the man is clearly older than he was in the first movie, because I think this one is supposed to take place between 1 and 2, if I had to guess, or maybe 2 and 3. It's hard to tell. Even though the man is clearly older, he still brings so much to this character. You have one of my favorite lines in the trailer.
"This is not retribution. It's a reawakening."
And I truly do think he does a great job in this, and having him as the main character, having you relate to John Kramer, while a thing that maybe not works in every type of movie, I think they do a good enough job of making you want him to get revenge on these people. And they do make you sympathize with him, and the fact that his ideology is fully realized. Because when people beat the games, he then helps them and let them live. That's always his ideology. If they manage to do it, if they prove that they have the will to live, he will let them live. And that's why I always love John Kramer as a character, and this movie captures that, the idea of his whole premise of putting people through the traps and testing if they have the will to survive. I think that is insanely well done in this movie. And also the trap sequences, surprisingly, had me squirming in some areas, and as I said in the Talk to Me review, I've seen all the Saw movies, and there were some shots that did have me like go, ugh, a little bit, and it's impressive that the movie was able to do that. They also do have Amanda Young in this, you know, John Kramer's assistant or protege, and they do set up a good relationship between her and him in the fact that obviously she's going to have to take over for when John Kramer is gone, and I feel like they do a good connection between the two. I feel like Shawnee Smith does a good enough acting job, especially with Tobin Bell, that the connection between those characters, you feel it, and it really does sell why she follows John Kramer. And as I said, the writing is pretty good in this to where we're able to sympathize with John Kramer enough, even though, yet again, he does shit like making somebody cut their own arm off in past movies, all because, I don't know, they took antidepressants to hide the pain. And it's like, sometimes his ideology doesn't make sense. But in this, I feel like it does what most good Saw movies do, especially one of my favorite ones, Saw 6, is it makes the people doing the traps realize what they did is awful, and he puts them through what they made other people experience. And especially because that's what Saw 6 does, one of my favorites of the franchise. That's why I think this movie does a good job of making you sympathize with John Kramer enough and hate the people that he is torturing. But the film does still have some problems. One of my issues is that two of the trap victims that we see, they practically do what John Kramer asks them to do. They just run out of time. And this seems like a minor complaint, but they do it twice. And the problem that I have there is that they did what John Kramer was asking within 3 minutes. Like, he literally makes somebody cut off their fucking leg in 3 minutes. They do it. They just run out of time by the slightest amount. The shit that they're doing would be insanely hard to do within 5 minutes, but they just run out of time because they basically did it. And all I would do to change this is just have them not be able to do it. That's the simple fix to this problem. And, well, yes, it is It does sound like a complaint, but that's the whole thing of John Kramer's thing. If they have the will to live, they practically showed that they had the will to live. They did the shit that he was asking. They just run out of time by like 5 seconds. And I do have a problem with that. But the other trap sequences are pretty well done, I will say. And they do set up the whole like Saw reveal twist thing. And while I could say that it is far-fetched that I don't believe certain things would work with this twist, yet again in the past, similar things don't make entire sense in the Saw franchise with the twist. So I'm willing to let leeway and rule of cool apply there. It also adds to like the mystique of John Kramer and stuff. And while like I'm just like, what if he were to do that and then all of this would not change whatsoever? Like, I'm complaining about little things here, but that's just how I'm doing. And obviously, as I said, most of the acting is top-notch all around. Obviously, Tobin Bell and Shawnee Smith are doing such a great job in this. And most of the trap victims, even though they're complete douchebags, they're pretty good at playing it, especially the main foil, the doctor. She's pretty good in this, and she definitely does show that she can act up to the stand of Tobin Bell and be kind of a rival to him, and she does a great job in this, and that character is interesting to enough of a point. I do have a problem with this, is that they do go, I think, a bit too far in making the character too evil that John Kramer is going to go up against. It's fine if you do this, but then you need to have a more satisfying payoff, because in my opinion, the payoff to what she gets as a punishment for a trap, I don't think is necessarily the best that it could have been. I think they were trying to go with something like the first movie, but in my opinion, you need it to be more satisfying or have it be a more terrifying scenario. In this, it's just kind of a like, I guess it's supposed to imply that she would starve to death in there, but it's like, I feel like they needed to make it more satisfying, and they didn't say a classic line that I did kind of want them to say. But overall, I feel like it's all right, but I do feel like it just wasn't satisfying enough, especially with how evil they made the character, which is fine. I just wish that they maybe would have gone more into it. But yeah, overall, I relatively enjoyed Saw X. I truly think this is a true return to the franchise, especially with its shot cinematography. The fact that they did change some things up, not having a police investigation side plot line to the side of it, and especially because they made John Kramer the main character. And I think the movie does a pretty good job overall of making you side with him, even though in some areas, as I said, his ideology is a bit questionable because the fact that the people with the trap victims practically do what he's asking, but they fail even so. And as I said, easy fix, you just don't have them get as far with it as they do. Obviously, I could pick apart more things with the twist, but it's a Saw movie. I'm not gonna pick apart every little thing with the twist. The writing in this is relatively good enough to make you sympathize with John Kramer and dislike the people he's making cut off their legs and chop off their arms or whatever the fuck. And yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this as a Saw movie. I think it is definitely better than Jigsaw or Spiral, the Book of Saw. This honestly might be up there between like 1, 2, and 6, because those are my like 3 favorites. I might put Saw X after that point. And especially because I just relatively enjoyed this. It was a good watch, a good return to the Saw franchise. And even though I said it has some problems with not making it the most satisfying payoff for the people that he's punishing, or making them too evil in some moments, I genuinely do feel like it doesn't bring it down enough to make the film bad to watch. If you're a fan of the Saw franchise, this is a definitely good, true return. And the trap sequences are edited and shot like Saw movies. The direction is really well done. Acting all really good, especially from Tobin Bell and Shawnee Smith. But yeah, overall, I genuinely really enjoyed Saw X. I recommend it, especially for a return to the franchise, and I hope we get another sequel with this same director, because this is the type of Saw movie I'm looking for, is you change it up a little bit, but then you still keep the formula true to its core. But yeah, for the rating, I will give it... Yeah, I think I am. Just for how much I enjoyed it, I'm gonna give it 4 jigsaw puppets who you have ride into on a tricycle to play a tape to make people cut off their legs out of 5. Yeah, that's a high rating, but just from the amount that I enjoyed this, I feel like it deserves it. Even though I did have some problems with it, I feel like overall the movie's paced really well. It makes you feel for John Kramer to where the movie is satisfying in the long run, even though there's a little few things bringing the score down. But yeah, I definitely recommend Saw X. It's a good return to the franchise. I would check it out if you're a fan of the Saw movies, or you just want a good horror movie to see this Halloween. But yeah, that'll be it for this review of Saw X. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please make sure to like, subscribe down below. Leave your opinions on the movie or the review in the comments section. If you have any other reviews you guys want me to do, leave those down there as well. And yes, I will have one more Halloween horror movie review, and that will, of course, be the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. So, be on the lookout for that, and I will see you all next time.